Hello, heathens. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another Sketchy Saturday video. So before I jump into the video, just let me quickly give you a little brief on the illustration that I'm going to be featuring in this video. This illustration was available in the month of October for my Patreon patrons at the Color Fiend tier. So if any of you were Patreon patrons at that time, head on over to the Patreon, download it, and color it and enjoy. If you are not a patron, clearly it doesn't matter. You are still able to watch the video and hopefully enjoy it and hopefully glean something of value from the message that I'm going to be talking about today. So today's topic of discussion is actually twofold. I had put into my community tab a post soliciting questions from all of you here on YouTube for topics of conversation or questions that you would like answered, etc. So I'm going to be addressing two. I'm going to get the quick one out of the way. So Jess asked, what supplies did I use when I began my artistic career, and do I still employ those materials? Well, let's go back in time a little bit. When I first started illustrating, I was a teenager and I started off first with graphite, so pencils, and then I graduated to, or rather I added colored pencils. So I was using graphite in conjunction with colored pencils, and then somehow I discovered in high school charcoal and completely fell in love with charcoal pencils, charcoal sticks, charcoal pastel, all of it, just all of the dried stuff basically. So graphite, colored pencils, charcoal, my God, I loved it all. And then markers were introduced because when I was not in the mood to get messy with all of the dusts and the powders and the inhalation of all of those things, markers were it. I became heavy into comic book art and illustration work of that ilk. So markers came in, and then acrylic paint, watercolor. I was using everything. I was using a little bit of everything, and I was experimenting and falling in love with just about every material. So depending on the mood that I was hoping to achieve, that is what would dictate my materials. Now, today, you certainly don't see me using colored pencils anymore. I stopped using colored pencils about 5-ish or so years ago. And charcoals, I have not touched charcoals in many, many years. I couldn't even tell you how long it's been since I've used charcoals or pastels. And I still use markers and paint, both acrylic paint, watercolor paint, and I introduced gouache a few years ago. So basically, I replaced the colored pencils and the charcoals with gouache paint. And yeah, I mean, I still use markers, I still use paints of different varieties, and pencil. Although I will say that the pencil, I used to create completed drawings in pencil, and these days I simply use the pencil for sketching. So we'll have to revisit that because I do like the look of fully rendered graphite illustrations. I don't know why I don't do it anymore. I think, to be completely honest with you, I believe it was just because of the paper that I had been using. I had started playing with substrates and then in sketchbooks, and then if you don't seal your illustrations, they start to get all powdery and they get all soft, that the line art spreads and bleeds and they just become less defined over time. And so I think it was a practical reason why I stopped using graphite, but I still like it. So we'll have to revisit that someday. So Jess, thank you for the question. It was a little trip down memory lane for a second there. And now we are going to move on to the meat of today's video, to Brooke's question. Brooke recommended that I discuss the importance of remaining true to oneself and art style when everyone, it seems, is attempting to follow trends. I'm going to take a little sip here. Iced chai tea today. In recent weeks, the iced chai has replaced the Earl Grey. The Earl Grey will come back. I need another week or two of iced chai before my man, the Earl, returns. Okay, so first and foremost, in the most distilled way of expressing and agreeing with the sentiment of being oneself, yes, of course, obviously believe in being true to oneself. My entire existence is a testament to this idea, this whole concept of just being completely authentic. Had I opted for an easier, more conventional way of life, it is likely, now I can't guarantee it, but it is likely that I would be more financially secure, more financially and socially stable, and socially acceptable by extension. But emotionally, I would be a wreck. That's simply not the path I was supposed to take. Sometimes I wish things were easier. Sometimes I wish maybe I had a more conventional way of thinking, but those moments are very fleeting. Those moments only enter my brain when I am confronting adulting, right? When I'm confronting things that as an adult on this planet one needs to deal with. And the reality is, girl, you're going to have issues just like everyone else. So just face them and continue being your bad self, right? So I do. Those moments again are very, very fleeting. So let's not misconstrue that messaging. But on the other side of the coin, does participating in fads and trends render someone inauthentic? I don't believe so. And in fact, I'm going to serve you all a rather emphatic hell no in regards to that. Now, it all comes down to the reasoning why these fads are created, why these trends are invented, and why people follow them. But inherently, I see nothing wrong with them. Now, I will begin the following our little soapboxy segment, our little soapbox sketchy Saturday today, with a quote from a song. I know it sounds corny, right? But we're gonna start with a song, so everybody gather around. Now, I won't be singing; I'll spare you. But the song it's by a relatively obscure electronic act called Fisher Spooner. They had a moment several years ago, and then they have a little bit of a cult following, but if you've never heard of them, it's fine. The song itself is altogether annoying. It's fun, but it's annoying. It's one of those, right? It's catchy. Most importantly, the band doesn't matter, the genre doesn't matter, but the message of the song is very simple and important. And I quote, "You don't need to emerge from nothing. You don't need to tear away." So again, you don't need to emerge from nothing. You don't need to tear away. It's the end of the quote. So in essence, this song is saying, hey, listen, you're good the way you are. Stop stressing about how normal you are. Stop stressing about being quote unquote plain. You're fine. You're fine. You are fine just the way you are. I'm going to cut this video for a second because the dog is going to start howling, so excuse me. Okay. In hindsight, I should have allowed the dog to sing. It would have been appropriate considering what we're talking about. But anyway, the song is preaching basically, hey, you're good. There's no need to stand out. You don't have to. You don't have to be a tryhard. You don't have to do anything unconventional, weird, and spectacular. You're good just the way you are. Life is about balance. The world needs psychedelic colors just as much as it needs neutrals. Just take a look at my artwork, for instance. Most of the time, I spend my life in the world of psychedelia, right? I've been constantly exploring bright, bold, punchy, kitschy colors, sparkle, glitter, the works. But then, sometimes, on occasion, you will see me delve into the world of softer, neutral colors. It doesn't happen frequently, but it does happen, and I enjoy it immensely. Again, it's all about balance. I follow what I'm in the mood to do, and that is where my path leads me. My favorite color palettes are bold, bright, and in your face, but sometimes I just want something a little bit softer, a little bit more subdued. Balance. Balance, baby. That's what it's all about. Trends themselves are also about balance. I don't believe trends are always a dirty word, and I don't believe that following the status quo is necessarily always a bad thing either. It's all about how and why one chooses to follow the trends that they follow and why one chooses to follow the conventional paths that they follow. I'm going to give you a far-reaching example of why being quote-unquote normal is not a bad thing, okay? Collectively, as a society, we think being a criminal is a bad thing. Being a murderer is unacceptable, right? That's the normal way of thinking. I see nothing wrong with that. Now, on the topic of criminality, I definitely believe that certain things should not be criminal. They should not be considered criminal behaviors. Murder, yes, absolutely, unequivocally, right? Causing physical harm to someone else, absolutely, unequivocally bad. But also, I don't think that topics or activities such as marijuana should be legal or illegal. I do not partake in marijuana use, but alcohol is exponentially worse and more destructive, and yet that is allowed. And there's a whole reason why, government conspiracies and all of that. But I'm just giving you I'm painting in broad strokes here, okay? Murder, bad. Alcohol, bad but legal. Marijuana, not bad but illegal. And sex work and prostitution, I think, should also be legalized. I mean, just look at Europe. There are certain civilized countries in Europe who handle it very well. And it's not an issue. Here, big issue. So again, trends, normalcy, what's okay, what's not. It's a big gray area. I don't see in black and white on most things. I myself, hi, hello, have we met? The curmudgeonly, selectively social, creative loner who, you all know the story. I up and moved to the desert years ago to pursue a solitary life of creativity. Yeah, me, this one. I follow trends on occasion. Alternative folks and alternative lifestyles, and those of us who orbit them or who are involved in them in some way or another, we are trendy in some respects. Whether we become caricatures of ourselves because we choose to only follow the trends that exist within our alternative lifestyles, that is the difference between genuine self-awareness or lack thereof. Let's travel back in time a bit to my origin story, shall we? Let's take one of my little time travel-y trips back in time in my time machine. Allow me a quick sip here. I tend to lose my train of thought when I take a sip, so we're going to try to keep it on track. So let's travel back in time a little bit, again, to my origin story. My life has always been about music, art, and fashion in some capacity. These three elements have always fueled my escapist fantasies, and to this day, they inform my creative projects. They inform who I am as a person, they inform what I create and what I do. Do I listen to popular music? Yes. Obscure music? Yes. Do I follow or do I purchase mainstream clothing, clothing that I can walk into Target or TJ Maxx or what have you, just name any big box store. Do I purchase clothing items from those places? Yeah, I do. Do I also wear funky, out there, over the top, one of a kind, outrageous vintage fashion? Yeah, I dig that too. And I often mix everything together. I create a whole amalgamation of kook, and that is my outfit. I can get some biker shorts at Target. I can get a bralette at, TJ Maxx. And then I can find this ridiculously sequined shoulder padded shirt at some thrift store in the middle of nowhere. I'll put them all together. And that's my outfit for the day. Trends and obscure, unconventional interests bleed together and they percolate in the Karla machine, if you will. I'm kind of like a little coffee machine over here. And that amalgamation somehow eventually becomes the whole package. It becomes all that I am and all that I create. I don't feed into the Karla machine all sorts of obscure oddities only. I don't keep it exclusive to that because then I would be following a convention, right? Likewise, I don't fill the coffee machine, the Karla coffee machine. Okay. I don't fill the Karla machine. I guess it could be a coffee machine, right? The Karla fee machine, whatever. I don't fill that with all sorts of popular interests either, because if I did, then that would be convention, right? I would be forcing myself into a box. So I just blend a little of everything and let it all drip together and melt together and drip, drip, drop into the Karla coffee pot. And out pops me. Hi. When I was a junior, or rather when I was in junior high and high school, I never, quote unquote, fit in with any group. I dressed and behaved then much as I do now, somewhere between new wave, goth, a little bit of disco tendencies in there with like the platform shoes and such. And for several years, I had this didn't last very long. This was definitely a little bit of a fad that I was playing with for a while because I was dabbling in making electronic music, which I have to say was actually kind of good. But art took precedent and the music was tossed aside. But I had a little bit of a cyber goth raver thing going on too, so I was basically 80s new wave goth and a little bit of neon futuristic gothy raver, right? Which if you look at my artwork now, it's all basically the same. Back then, I kept to myself and to my music and to my books and to my sketchbooks. That's all I cared about, was escaping into books, escaping into sketchbooks, and listening to music. I had, shocker, right? A shocker to all of you. I had a reputation for being somewhat of a bookwormy hard ass. But in general, I tended to get along with the quote unquote the good kids. The druggies, the drunkies, the partiers, all of those losers I had zero interest in whatsoever. And back in my schools, the ones that I was attending, all of the partiers, druggies, drunkies, all of those kids tended to be like the skaters or the goth kids, the punks, all of them. I had absolutely no interest in any of them. The metalheads and the goths were not much different, right? They weren't really easily discernible. And they all tended to shop at the same stores. They tended to draw the same type of artwork. They all smoked and drank cheap beer and cheap cigarettes, and they listened to the same like 10, 20 bands, right? They were into the MTV scene of Nine Inch Nails, Marilyn Manson, etc. While I was over here digging on Depeche Mode, 90s freestyle, disco even, and I was just a bit all over the place. To them, I was the weirdo poser, right? I would walk around in black clothing with a little bit of like neon thrown in because of my electronic music thing. And yet I would be listening to, James Brown, Depeche Mode, the Chiffons, Pet Shop Boys, all of that kind of stuff in my ear. I was listening to goth music as well, but the original 80s goth, Bauhaus and the Sisters of Mercy and such. And none of that was on the wavelength of the kids in school because all they knew was MTV and Hot Topic. So in reality, when you think about it, who was the real poser here, right? But I never got into it. I never argued. I just ignored. I stayed in my lane. And we never got along. The gal who wore thrifted clothes was the poser while they all shopped at Hot Topic. And we'll just leave it at that. Inevitably, this crowd, at least from what I know, most, if not all of them, outgrew the trend of being the rebellious cool kid, right? We all know that trope. That was their thing in high school, but it wasn't authentically who they were. So they all outgrew it and they became either eternal losers or they grew up to adopt more conventional lifestyles. Some are happy, some are outwardly happy, but inwardly discontent. And it's painfully obvious when that happens, right? We all see that happen. People leave their rebellious nature behind. They think, I'm going to sow my wild oats and then I'm going to grow up and calm down and settle. And then years later, they realize that's not what I wanted. That's what society wanted for me. And then they're stuck in that box of thinking, should I stay? Should I go? Should I continue to live this conventional life? Or should I return to my roots and to my authentic self? And should I toss everything aside? But if I do, everyone's going to hate me. What do I do? What do I do? See, that's the beauty of being an individual thinker, is that you don't dig yourself into these holes that you then have to debate whether or not you are going to dig yourself out of because you are too concerned about how you are going to be perceived from the world or by the world at large. So anyway, me, still the weirdo doing her thing on her terms, the difference being where once I did harbor, and I will readily admit this, that once upon a time, I harbored a little sparkly glimmer of hope that perhaps once I left high school, I would find my community in adulthood because I always felt a little alienated, always. And I thought, when I grow up, when I get out of here, when I get away from all of these immature kids, I'm going to find my people. And what I have found as I grow up is that high school mentality of fitting in and keeping up with the Joneses and doing everything that everyone else is doing, that never leaves most people. So I have learned as I grow up that, sticking to myself, doing my thing, creating what I do, living the life that I do, I'm my own fulfillment, and that's cool. I have created and I exist in my own universe. It is a universe of my own design. But having said that, I do not cast aside or denounce the conventional or the trendy. It is welcome in my world in some capacity, in small doses. Some may consider me to be a bit of an anomaly, and objectively, sure, I can see why. However, I readily acknowledge that I am not entirely unique. Authentic, absolutely. But unique? Not at all. I'm just another free-spirited alterna gal, with a passion for the arts. I have tattoos, I color my hair. Baby, there's nothing unique about being the quote-unquote weird girl anymore. Everyone's a weird girl when you think about it. I am not, unfortunately, a radiant alien vampire with mega talent and charisma for days. I'd like to be, though. So maybe that's what I'm aiming for. Maybe that's what I'm aiming to become in this little universe that I have designed for myself. There is just something so off-putting and, quite frankly, eye-roll-inducing, violent eye-roll-inducing about quotes and little phrases such as, dare to be different, or normal people scare me. Like, it's actually making me cringe. I am puckering at the moment, just saying that. As someone deeply familiar with alternative lifestyles and culture, allow me to let you all in on a little secret. The people who make these proclamations the loudest, whether it be in person or online, the people who are the loudest about how weird they are, how unique they are, how special they are, these individuals are often the weakest, often the most weakest of spirit, and the most dull and conventional, because they're seeking validation. They are seeking approval by attempting to be shocking. They have nothing to hold on to. They don't know who they are, so they're seeking elements to attach their lack of personality to so that they seem as though they have a personality. They want to pretend to be larger than life because they are lacking in internal authenticity. They have not discovered themselves yet. Don't tell the world how cool you are. Show the world. Don't talk about the art, the projects, the whatever it is that you're involved in. Don't talk about the things that you are wanting to work on, that you are planning to work on. Move in silence. Do the damn thing and show it to the rest of us. Don't tell us, show us. What's worse, being a miserable try-hard or following a fun trend and enjoying life? Is it more admirable to sit behind a keyboard denouncing the quote-unquote normies of the world? Or is it worse to be a normie that you see online out in the world enjoying themselves, dancing, having fun, creating art that maybe is socially acceptable? They're out there doing it. They're out there enjoying themselves. But then the keyboard warriors are back here going, these people are so unoriginal and so blah, 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 blah. I know who I'd rather hang out with. Who would you rather hang out with? Miserable keyboard warriors, or the people enjoying themselves who just happen to enjoy themselves because they're following trends? Now, this can be with fashion, art, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. Are all trends positive? No. In fact, in terms of art, many are actually destructive. For instance, AI art. That is a trend I do not support. I do see both sides of the issue, though. I did recently upload a video, assuming it's still up on the channel, in which I discussed that. And so I won't get into it here, but long story short, I do not support AI. And anime art, which is not AI generated, is perennially trendy. I mean, it comes and goes. Well, here in the US, because we all know, of course, in Japan and in Asian countries, it is always popular, but, well, because it's part of their culture, right? It is a cultural art style, but outside of Asian countries, it comes and it goes. Now, unless one is planning on working in manga or anime or gaming, in which anime is a style, I think choosing the route of anime because it's popular and trendy on Instagram is actually quite detrimental to one's artistic development. Why? Because you end up stifling your creativity because you are following the conventions of a set style. Now, anime has very distinct conventions. You cannot tell me that if you see something that is an illustration that is in a Western style versus anime, you cannot tell the difference. You absolutely can. Now, there are nuances from artist to artist, right? In the way someone inks, in the way they do this, they do that. But all in all, you know anime when you see it. And that's what I mean when I say that there are conventions in place for it. And that's why I don't believe that going the route of anime is advisable unless one is seeking a career in that field. Okay, so anyway, off on that tangent. Let's move on to another one. The bigger picture here. No, I'm not on tangents today. I think I've been pretty good about staying on topic today, have I not? Anyway, let's not toot my horn too much, because then I will veer off on a little bird walk. All right, so the bigger picture here is, hi, me. My bubble, my planet, my universe. This particular planet in my universe, this one being YouTube, because I exist in a bubble, on a planet, in a universe of my own design. But a planet in my universe happens to be YouTube. This planet of YouTube exists because I jumped on a trend bandwagon. Mind's blown, right? Little brains just popping all over the place. Karla, you followed a trend? Yeah, I've been telling you for the past, 3 hours that I do it on a regular. So which trend am I referring to? Adult coloring books. Coloring books were initially a fad. They were a fad, which then became a trend, which then evolved into an actual legitimate hobby that ended up becoming beneficial for many people for various reasons, for simply entertainment, for mental health, for relaxation, all of that. Because a fad is something that does not endure. It's just something fun it comes and goes like a thief in the night. It's here and then it's gone. A trend lasts a little longer and then it fluctuates. A trend can die out, but then it will return in a few years, and then it will leave, and then it will come back. And then a trend sometimes does become an enduring hobby, and then it stays forever, and it never goes anywhere. And that's what happened with coloring books. By definition, I am a trend follower because I followed the trend of coloring books that resulted in my creating this channel. By definition, everyone who has found their way onto my channel has also been a trend follower. Newsflash, it's not a bad thing. Hell, bathing regularly was a weird trend at some point in history, and you surely don't hear anyone poo-pooing the thought of bathing on a regular basis, right? And if you do, you're nasty, and not in a good way. So be gone, be far gone from my channel, please, you dirt demon. But back on track here. What would a video of mine be without seeing the other side of the coin? How can being a trend follower, I just said it was a good thing, but how can it also be perceived as something negative? I will use coloring books as an example. Many creators follow the trend of creating books for the wrong reasons. There are many creators and companies out there who, like clockwork, release multiple books each and every season, and they all appear virtually identical. These creators don't really have an authentic identity. It's just, hey, it's Halloween, it's time to spit out 3 Halloween books. Christmas is coming, let's spit out 7 Christmas books. Let's just crank. Who cares? I'm in it for the pennies. I don't care about anything else. It's not who I am. It's just the thing to do. Now, outside of coloring books, this happens with art. People fall down the doom scroll rabbit hole on Instagram or TikTok, wherever, whatever social media platforms there are, and they see the artwork that is garnering the most likes, the most attention, and then they start creating art in that style because they want the attention. and then they don't get the same attention, and then they start feeling less than. Well, you're feeling less than because you are being inauthentic to yourself. Who cares? Why is it so important for people to know, for people to acknowledge you? Like, why is that so important? If you are true to yourself, your audience will come. Now, the difference is, why do you want an audience? Because here's the thing. I've been true to myself since I've been on the internet. And look how tiny my audience is. That should tell you how authentic I am. That I would prefer having a small audience and not being popular, quote unquote. I would prefer being authentic, but being appreciated by a few rather than being inauthentic and being loved by many. Outside of art, colorful hair, right? Colorful hair is cool. But how many folks color their hair, get a tattoo, or invent a sexuality label because it's the edgy, cool thing to do? It's not necessarily who they are. It's just because it's the cool thing online to do. Rainbow hair is awesome. I love colorful hair. I have purple hair. You know this. I did it because purple is my favorite color, and I love color, and I just wanted purple hair. It's not that deep. It wasn't about being rebellious or cool or this or that. It's just I like purple, and I wanted purple on my body. That's different than dyeing your hair because it's rebellious to your conservative family. Colorful hair just because you feel like it is good. Colorful hair because you just want to be rebellious and cool is dumb. Got it? I hope so. So the moral of today's story, we're getting in on the end now, finally. Do your best to silence the din of outside influences and sources, and truly do and follow your authentic self. There is no need to proclaim one's weirdness or denounce one's dullness. Why not embrace all aspects of yourself? If you want to leave your natural hair color, wear no makeup, dress like a prairie pioneer, and I don't know, listen to the most brutal Norwegian death metal, all while painting cute cupcakes and kittens all day, baby, do it. If you are a sweet, gentle, stay-at-home housewife who, I don't know, you have a hidden talent for drawing smutty pornographic illustrations and, I don't know, posing in fetish wear, baby, do it. We've all heard the cliche, variety is the spice of life, right? Variety is the spice of life. There is a modicum of truth to every cliche, and especially to this one. Variety is indeed the spice of life. Do your thing your way. Do what you want, how you want, regardless of how trendy or untrendy it is. Subcultures and convention, who cares? As long as it's authentic, you are doing it right. If you are authentically you, you can do no wrong. The only people who can tell you that you are doing something wrong, that you're a poser, that you're this, that you're that, are the people who put themselves into their own box. Because think about it. If you give yourself rules to follow, how would you know when someone's breaking them or when someone's not doing something correctly? Is that not the very definition of convention? Is ascribing to a certain set of rules? Food for thought. Now, I will end this long video with a word of advice to any artists who are watching this, who are looking to develop their style. Doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter when you started drawing, it doesn't matter. You are just looking to develop a style. The more you actively seek out inspiration, the more you are subconsciously creating parameters by which to limit your development. You will develop more personal style by scribbling 100 pages of garbage scribbles in a sketchbook than you will by perfectly replicating a perfect piece of art that already exists online. I'm not saying don't look at it, but don't attempt to copy. You will not learn. You will not develop a distinguishable style. You'll just be another clone. Have fun, follow trends, but don't make it your entire personality. Okay, that is the end. Be bad, be good. I don't give a damn which. Just make sure you come back in one piece. And I hope you took something out of this video. If you did, let me know down below. All right, I will see you nasties in the next one.